Hi guys, Olive here today to talk about what's on my March 2024 TBR. I've got a pretty even split between fiction and nonfiction this month, but of course, as usual, I will start off by talking about fiction. And I've decided that March is going to be the month that I start making good on a promise I made to myself of rereading books this year. I talked about this in my goals video, but I wanted to make a point of rereading some old favorites in 2024 because in general, I don't make a lot of time for rereading. I am so focused on getting books off of my TBR that it never even occurs to me to go back and reread books. But even though I don't do very much of it, I do think rereading is very special and very valuable. I think there's a lot to be gained in going back to favorite books or even just books you really enjoyed the first time around or books that you didn't know how you felt about the first time around. Inevitably, there are going to be things that you missed during that first read through that you'll pick up on. You can really start to understand what the author was getting at even more when you come back to a book. So in the month of March, I've decided to go back and revisit an all-time favorite that I have not touched for nearly a decade. It's The Tsar of Love and Techno by Anthony Marra, which is technically a short story collection, but I consider it a novel split into short stories because all of the stories are interconnected. I first read this book back in 2015, which is the year that I started this channel, and this was one of the very first books that I ever gave a single book review video to here on my channel. So there are lines from this book that are burned into my brain because this book just knocked the wind out of me back in 2015, but I am also sure that there's a ton from this book that I've forgotten in those intervening years. So I'm really excited to go back to this one with fresh eyes, but I'm also kind of curious to go back to that review video that I made that I have not watched since 2015. I'm wondering if my approach to this book will be different because I would consider myself to be a more sophisticated reader and reviewer than I was back in 2015, if only because I have had so much practice between then and now. So I'm interested to see, am I going to talk about this book in a different way? Am I going to think about this book in a different way than I did back then? I'm excited to go back to this for a few different reasons. But the rest of the fiction reading I'm planning on doing in the month of March is all going to be for March Mystery Madness, which is a fabulous, long-running annual event here on BookTube. It was co-created by Lizzie Faye Loves Books and Troy Tao, and every single year it is co-hosted by a long list of amazing booktubers. I will put all of that information in the description box below for you. I love March Mystery Madness. I'm always in the mood this time of year to read mysteries and thrillers, so it comes at the absolute perfect time for me. And that's why it's always very easy for me to participate every single year. I think the hosts do such an amazing job. There's always a theme. This year's is To the Nines, and there's a whole bingo card with challenges you can complete. I think it looks like so much fun. Personally, I'm not much of a mystery and thriller reader. I'm much more of a dabbler. And so I just like to seize this opportunity to read more mysteries and thrillers during the month of March rather than try to complete the challenges. So I won't be doing those, but I did select a big handful of each of those two genres to read this month. There was one from my very tall stack of ARCs that I'm looking to get through this year that seemed to fit the bill for this challenge. So I decided to seize the opportunity to pick up The Other Side of Night by Adam Hamdy. I don't know a ton about this one, and that's mainly because it's very twisty-turny, and apparently it's best if you go into this one knowing little to nothing about it. That's what the publicist told me before he sent me this book, and I took that piece of advice, so I don't know much about what this one has in store. I'm hoping that by the time my wrap-up rolls around and I've read this, I will have come up with a way to talk about this in a way that preserves that element of surprise for anyone else who wants to read it. But until then, I remain very curious about what this one has in store. I'm also trying to read more off of my shelves in 2024, particularly my fiction collection. I'd like to get a lot of those books read. And one that I already owned that seemed to fit March Mystery Madness perfectly is Chasing the Devil's Tail by David Fulmer. This is set in 20th century New Orleans, and we follow a Creole detective as he investigates a series of murders of women of the night. New Orleans is a city that I am absolutely desperate to visit. It's just that I worry that when I go there, I may never want to come home. Until I can get there, I'm just going to be transported there via this mystery. Then there's a newer thriller that caught my eye a while back, and then I keep seeing it everywhere, so I feel like that's a sign that I should probably just go ahead and pick this one up during March Mystery Madness. It's called Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. And from what I hear about this one, it is a very dark thriller about a bookseller who becomes obsessed, infatuated with a new coworker. And I've also heard that this cozy mystery-esque cover is not at all representative of just how unsettling this book is. Apparently, it also explores themes of jealousy and competition between women. Color me intrigued. It seems like the month of March is just going to be dominated by dark reads for me, because I am also interested in reading Here in the Dark by Alexis Solowski. The main character of this thriller is a former actress turned theater critic, and she interviews for a promotion at the magazine she works for, but then the man who interviewed her disappears, and she decides she's going to look into it. I've heard that this one is a little bit noir, but also has very big theater kid energy, and both of those things are speaking my language. My final March Mystery Madness selection is going to be The Fortune Seller by Rachel Kopelke-Dale. This was one of my most anticipated releases of this first quarter of the year. This book follows a group of students who are on the equestrian team at Yale in the early 2000s, and how a newcomer joins their group, and the rest of the group doesn't learn the full truth about her until many, many years later. I am sure that the Yale of it all means that this one's going to have that element of dark academia, which I do enjoy, even if I do think it's quite overdone in recent years. I've also heard that there's a tarot card thing to this book, and also there's a very big horse girl component because of the equestrian team. I'm not entirely sure what to expect from this one, but I'm willing to give it a try. But then from March Mystery Madness into just plain old March Madness, my first nonfiction pick for the month of March is going to be Miracles on the Hardwood by John Gassaway. This is a work of sports history about basketball teams from Catholic colleges that have excelled throughout the history of the NCAA. And I thought this would make fun reading as I make my brackets for both the men and women's tournaments this year. And I will never get over just how much I love this cover. It has to be one of the best designed book covers I have ever seen. I mean, basketball players immortalized in stained glass. I mean, it's just genius. Another one from my big pile of arcs that I'll be taking on during the month of March is Ducks by Kate Beaton. This is a graphic memoir about the 2 years this author spent working in the oil sands as she attempted to pay off some very hefty student loan debt. I have heard only good things about this one, and a number of you in the comment section of the Shame Stack video I made about this big pile of arcs that I need to get through, a number of you said that you'd like to hear my thoughts on this. So it's time to read it. I don't know if Kate Beaton actually talks about ducks in the book Ducks. I hope she does, but just in case she doesn't, I will still get my nature book fix in the form of A Sting in the Tail by David Golson, which is a memoir meets natural history about how this conservationist author attempted to reintroduce a once native bumblebee species to the UK. Bees are creatures that I just can't seem to learn enough about. I've read a number of books on bees or by beekeepers. They are just so cool. And I have heard really great things about this book, so I think I'm in for a treat. And to close out this March TBR, I have my 2 selections off of my 24 nonfiction books to read in 2024 list. I'm just continuing to chip away at it as the year goes on. That's the best way to handle it. And one of my 2 selections for the month of March is going to be The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales by Oliver Sacks. This book tells true stories of people suffering from different neurological conditions that caused their perception of the world to be altered. And the other book I'll be reading off of that list in March is going to be Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, a very famous memoir about this author's troubled upbringing in Ireland that I hear is equal parts heartbreaking and hilarious. I thought I would sneak in a little bit of Irish representation in my March TBR because it will be St. Patrick's Day before we know it. So those are the books that I'm intending to read during the month of March. Let me know down in the comments comments what you thought of these books, or if you're now interested in reading any of these books after seeing them in this video. Let me know what you're reading during the month of March, and also let me know if you're planning on joining in on March Mystery Madness. It is always a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. I will put all the information for the event in the description box below, so you can check it out, see if you're interested in joining in. Also in the description box, I have listed and linked all of the books I spoke about today for your clicking convenience. And at the very bottom of the exact same description box, you'll also see links to everywhere you can find me around the internet. Goodreads, Instagram, the Story Graph, all the places I'm the most active, in case you want to keep up with what I'm reading and doing right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.